So we'll be making a simple angle bracket for the back of the backhoe. Basically it's going to be 4 pieces of 3/16 by about 2.5 by about 3-inch long pieces. One's for a backing plate, one is for the front plate, and 2 are to form the angle bracket with a hole in it to hold the hook. So I'm just doing a mark out here real quickly. Just a couple holes in the piece. I'll use that for a reinforcement after the fact. But just basically you need 4 chunks of steel cut out, 3 inches long. And that fits quite nicely in between the bucket support bracket on the back of the bucket. You'll see the idea is to mount it up high enough where it's not going to interfere with digging with the bucket, and close to the support so that it has adequate reinforcement. Okay, over to the chop saw we go. So I'm just showing cutting off one of the pieces. The rest are very much the same. Just taking and deburring all the pieces. I like my fingers to be intact, so I like to take all the sharp edges off things. As well, it gives you a better paint job when you go to paint it. It's nothing for little bits that stick out to cause a run. And yes, it gets warm. Also stripping off, this was a piece of scrap steel that had paint on it, so I'm just stripping the paint off as well. Okay, here we go, skipping ahead a bit. So I got more four pieces, and I'm just comparing them to see which are the best match for length. And just going to swap the 2 pieces. That fits better. That fits better. Reason for that is I want them to be relatively even. The backing plate and the plate that I'm going to weld the angle onto doesn't really matter if they're a little bit different lengths, but for the angle bracket you definitely want it to be the same length. Just using a wheel here to strip off a welding blend wheel to strip off the paint and any burrs. Okay, so now getting down to some nice clean metal. Now here's a little trick. I'm going to match drill these 2 pieces for the backing and the front plate. So what I want to do here is make sure they stay in place while I do the drilling. So I will just punch a couple or take and weld a couple spot welds onto the outside, and that'll keep them nice and in line for the drilling. The only problem I found out after was that I should have marked the one plate up with the holes first. The welds kind of interfered with me trying to measure where the holes should go. But no worries, we figured it out anyways. Reason for doing this as well is you want the holes to be pretty much lined up, so it doesn't matter which way the bracket goes on and the backing plate goes on. It shouldn't make a difference. It'll be symmetric. Yes, it is warm. Okay, like these pens are have a very long, thin tip on them, and it makes great for markup work because you can get right in close to the ruler. It doesn't make for a lot of offset. Plus, I find they're pretty good about marking on darn near anything. Here you can see I'm running into the little problem of the weld sticking out. It's okay, I'll improvise. Yes, it is still a bit warm to the touch. So instead of using the square, I just measured up from the edge. Okay, get the center punch out and mark my centers of my holes. 4 holes. I'm using 3/16 bolts, so we'll be drilling it in a couple steps. I've just got my little drill press, my little portable drill press out, so it doesn't have a lot of power. So I'll be doing it in a couple steps. Move some stuff out of the way here. There we go. So I'll be using rapid tap cutting fluid on the drill bit to keep it cool, and this drill press doesn't have a lot of power, so you want to take and give it every advantage you can. So I'm just drilling pilot holes here. Got them all drilled on all 4 corners. Lining it up and clamping it. Repeat 3 more times and we're done. Yeah, this drill press is nothing special. I think I picked it up for about $70 about 5 years ago when one of the tool places had them on sale. So you can do this with a hand drill too if you don't have a drill press. But yeah, it does make it a little handier for, especially when you're trying to drill holes straight through. changing up to a larger drill bit. This is the second of about 3 drilling operations. Like I said, the drill press doesn't have a lot of power, so you compensate by just taking a smaller cut each time. Yes, it does get stuck sometimes. There we go. Okay, so now we have the final size drill bit in there. I think that's the final size. A little more of the rapid tap. Okay, so all 4 holes are drilled. Just going to put a countersink in and deburr the edges. Two reasons for this. One, it keeps you catching a finger on a sharp burr, and 2, makes it easier to start and stop the, or to insert the bolt if it has a little bit of a chamfer. And it just makes it look more finished. Okay, here I am drilling out the hole for the angle bracket. It was a little larger than what I had for standard drill bits, so I'm going to abuse one of these step drills. They're not supposed to be used on this heavy material. You're supposed to only use them on sheet metal, or up to about the thickness of the gauge of the step. But in this case, it's the only one I have, so basically what you do is you drill from both sides. That'll double the thickness of the step, and seem to work okay here. So basically the angle bracket is just 2 pieces of the steel welded together with a hole at the end, and eventually I knocked off the corners and rounded it out to make it sort of a circular thing. You'll see in the final install what it looks like. There you go. So now we're just going to weld the angle bracket onto the base plate. Once I get the crud scraped off the magnet, so it sits a little flatter. There we go. So I just basically marked the center point of the backing plate or the plate, and then lined up the angle bracket on top, and I'll just tack weld it in. Checking to make sure, of course, it's square. In the foreground, you can see the pintle hook that I've got, or clevis hook I have lined up for to use in the hole. That way I can hook on a tow hook or a sling or whatever I need to hook onto it quite easily. Well, just making sure that the hole still fits, as well as flipping it over so I can weld on the flat. Just makes it a little easier. This is my dad's old Miller welder. It's probably just about as old as me, but it still does the job. And ground clamp is acting up a little bit. I gotta take it apart and redo the end on it. So flip it the other way around, gravity helps. Okay, so my camera ran out of batteries, but here's the end result. There's the backing plate, and here's the lift hook bracket. Mounts just in between the two supports, just under the pivot. And it's just a fairly flat spot on the bucket. The rest of it's kind of curved, so it's about the only spot. The other thing I wanted to make sure of, there was no interference with the bucket through motion when it went through full motion. You'll see me do that in a little bit, but here we're just getting started using the base plate, the backing plate, to mark out the holes. Now we're using the center punch. Unfortunately, it covers up the serial number sticker for the bucket, but in my case, there's hardly any of it left anyways. Now, the idea here is to come up with something that's sturdy enough it's not going to break first time you pull something, but not something so heavy duty that the part that breaks is your bucket. So by sticking to 3/16 inch bolts and 3/16 inch plate, yeah, you're fairly safe. Did the same as I did on the other plates. Did a pilot hole and then just sizing up the holes. Steel in the bucket is actually pretty soft. It's just mild steel. Just using the drill bit to clear out the burr. Okay, mounting the bracket's fairly straightforward. Basically start one bolt. I'm putting the bolt head inside the bucket and the nut on the outside. Figured that would be less wear and tear on the nut. So, I'm just getting ready here with the nuts and bolts. I'm going to take and just bolt it on lightly, and then I'll take and check to see. I'm going to put the bucket up too, just to make it easier to get into. Reaching it around. There we go. And there we are. So the backing plate's on the inside. I got a bolt stuck through, and I'm just putting the nut on to hold the plate. I'll snug them up, and then I'm just going to do a quick check to see that there's no interference. Yes, and I even made a special effort and painted it Kubota orange. Just getting the socket. Yeah, I just grabbed the first 9/16 socket that I could find, and it happened to be universal. It was a little bit worn out, so. Okay, I'm just going to test here, make sure it doesn't interfere. And all good. Okay, so I'll finish bolting it on. Had an opportunity to try it out as soon as I got it installed as well. It's one of the reasons I hurried up and got it done. Cut a bunch of cedar trees down and needed to skid them to the back, so hook a loop around them and then, or as a choker, and then just hook it up with a tow strap, and off we went. It worked beautifully. I could use the bucket and the boom to control the direction of them to get them out of the area I had to get them out of, and lift or lower as needed to get them over obstacles. Just taking and cleaning up one hole that was a little bit tight. Just had a little burr in it. Yeah, that's all it took. Just using a little bit of Loctite on it, not so much to keep them on, but to seal the threads against moisture and rust getting in there. You can use never sees, that's usually what I do, but in this case I figured it wouldn't hurt to take and actually have them stay on there too, with a little Loctite. Don't need to use a universal, but that's what I had handy. Getting a wrench to put on the inside. And there we go. Just putting the clevis hook in, and that's what it looks like. So you can hook onto the clevis hook, or you can take and run into the other side of it with a with whatever you got that'll fit in the hole.